Hi, I'm Dr. Andrew Bell from Pro Prep Coaching, and welcome to this short seminar on hydration. So if you like this seminar, please be sure to check out the rest of the content that Pro Prep Coaching has. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel, where there's a whole host of videos and a podcast that we do on there regularly. Also be sure to check out the Instagram TV, which we run, and be sure to check out my Instagram TV as well. If you go over to the videos section, you'll find a series link, and in the series link of the Instagram page, you'll find 25 other videos as well. Also, we produce this content regularly for all of our clients to help get them in shape for their various sporting endeavours. We work with bodybuilders, strongmen, powerlifters, rugby players, triathletes, marathon runners, and general body transformation people. If you're a general lifestyle client and you're wanting to get yourself in shape, then we work with people like yourself as well. So if you do like this video, be sure to check out the rest of the content. Leave a like, leave a comment, and please be there to interact with our channel as well. Also hit the sign up button to join our mailing list on the proprep.com website. All right, without any further ado, let's get into this particular presentation. Okay, so I'm talking about hydration in the respects for the effect on anaerobic performance largely. So we're talking about weightlifting, strongman, things like that, really. However, lots of this stuff still does apply to aerobic training as well, and you can utilize many of these techniques to help get yourself in the best possible shape you can for whatever the event is that we're looking at. What I generally do with my own guys, though, is I would make something more specific than this sort of brief outlay that I've got in here. Now, at Pro Prep Coaching, as I've mentioned already, it's myself and Steph Noble, plus a team of other very well qualified coaches. We utilise evidence-based techniques to help get our athletes in shape. We also take a practical approach to get people in shape, because you can see myself and my partner, we are practitioners, we are pro bodybuilders as well. And I'm a published researcher as well. So if you go on to ResearchGate, you can find a number of my publications based around bodybuilding and athletic supplements, etc. from there. I've utilised these techniques myself down the years to help get my athletes in shape. Here's just a nice selection of some of the athletes that we worked with in 2021. The highlight of that year was probably getting 7 athletes to the World Finals in Las Vegas. But here's another selection of a host of other champions that were produced along the way. And like I said, if you want to work with us, then please do get in touch with us at proprepcoaching.com. Okay, so what we're going to learn today about hydration is we're going to talk about dehydration, the effects dehydration has on performance, how much water do you need, how to fuel yourself appropriately, and then how to make your own sports supplements. So that's the goal. Okay, so a lot of this information that I've put together comes from position stances from the International Society of Sports Nutrition and the American College of Sports Medicine, and what their official stances are on hydration and strategies that you can utilize. Now, I think we're all very conscious of this. The human body is largely made up of water. Go and have a look online, and what you'll see is anywhere between 60 to 70% of the body is quoted as being made up of water. That's made up of different compartments. So we've got body weight. 6% of that body weight is water, 20% is dedicated to extracellular fluid, and 40% of that 60 is dedicated to intercellular fluid. You can break it down even more into interstitial tissues and extracellular tissues as well if you want to from there. So if you can imagine, if you lose a significant amount of your water, then that is one way in which you can really affect your performance, because things just don't work quite as well when you've got less fluid in your body, such as its fundamental processes that it carries out in the whole human body. Water is essential to life, really, at the end of the day. And this is a great quote, I think, from the GISSN, and it's one of the most important nutritional ergogenic aids for athletes is water, and eliminating dehydration during exercise is one of the most effective ways to maintain exercise performance. So people always come to me and they're asking me about what supplements they should use, what are the best things they can do, and very simply, one of the easiest ways in which you can improve your performance is just make sure that you're not dehydrated, such as the effect that it has on performance. So how do you assess dehydration? Well, there's a number of different ways in which you can do it, but Ballpark figures, if you lose 2 to 3% of your body weight, then that can lead to as much as a 10 to 15% in anaerobic and aerobic performance. So things just become much more challenging, much more difficult. Muscular contractions are much more difficult to carry out. You lose power, heart rate becomes much higher. Your ability to carry out cardiovascular exercise is much more challenging because the strain on your heart is much higher, so that impacts oxygen delivery, and all of those things are going to contribute to a loss of performance, particularly as you progress through an exercise session. So you start up and you're doing very well, but as you get towards the end, you start to tire because of that loss of body water. So this guy here, you can see he's very sweaty. He probably started the session performing very well, but by the time he gets to the end of the session, his performance is impacted not only because he's used up a lot of carbohydrate in his muscle, but because he's just lost body weight and body water as well. So it's not just a case of his phosphates are exhausted, it is a case of that his body weight has dropped and he's lost fluids at the same time. Now there's different ways in which you can calculate dehydration. You can measure total body water, you can measure a drop in body weight, and then you can do other things as well. You can measure osmolarity. So that is looking at the concentration of different electrolytes in your blood or in your urine. So that's one way in which you could do it as well. And then you can see here you've got the practicality of doing these different solutions and then working these things out. If you've got an osmo check, then you can do this stuff. But a very easy way to assess dehydration, guys, is just to weigh yourself. Very simple way to do it. And I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about this later on. So here's a chap here from Bath University. You can see he's got an osmo check, so he would collect a urine sample and then he's going to use one of these little osmo check devices, and then he's going to check his osmolarity from here. So he'd have a baseline level, he'd have some cut-offs that he's looking at from there to measure electrolyte concentration in his urine, and then should it go below a certain threshold that I've highlighted on the previous page, then you can sort of determine if the individual is dehydrated or not dehydrated from there. So simple method. These are expensive though, so it's unlikely that a lot of people are going to have access to something like that. You can get bioelectrical impedance scales. So if these are bioelectrical impedance scales, they can send an electrical current for your body, and then you can get data like this. So you can measure total body water, you can see, and you can measure it in terms of extracellular, intracellular, and you can see where the body water is distributed. So you need a specialist set of scales to do this, but you can absolutely do it. Simple scales though, if you weigh yourself at the start of an exercise session and weigh yourself at the end of an exercise session, obviously completely unclothed, wipe off all the excess sweat on yourself, and then you take account for the water that you've consumed, then you can work out how much total body water you've lost, and then if you're dehydrated or not. So again, a different way. Very low tech ways, looking at urine colour. Very simple. We want to start our exercise sessions looking like this, and then we want to end our exercise sessions, if we possibly can, looking like this. If we've got really dark urine, then you can expect that you're dehydrated and that you're probably going to see a loss of performance. Now this is a concept that I talk about called osmosis. And this is a well-known phenomenon in the world of biochemistry essentially. If you imagine this is your intestinal tract, and this is the small intestine, this is your bloodstream, and what you expect to happen is fluid will pass from a high concentration to a lower concentration of fluid. The other thing is of a particular solute. The other thing that I need to make clear is that certain electrolytes, so salt for example, are what we call hydrophilic, so they attract water to them as well at the same time. So having a little bit of sodium in a solution can help you uptake water better than fluid. So that's what you're measuring with something like an osmo check. You're measuring the amount of solute which is in your bloodstream or in your urine. Okay, so that's a brief on hydration. Now, things to consider is dehydration can come under a number of different circumstances. So I've got a large schematic here. Feel free to pause the video here at this point and have a look at different conditions that might lead to dehydration and things that you need to consider. But very briefly, I mean, different sports, marathon running versus weightlifting in the gym, you can expect to lose a lot more fluids doing this compared to this. Likewise, if you're doing a high rep scheme versus a sort of traditional powerlifting lower rep scheme with larger rest periods, then your fluid intake requirements are just not going to be as high as the sort of the higher rep scheme that you're working out on. If it's hot or cold, very, very simple. Are we using more clothing or less clothing? How hot your gym is. So these are environmental factors. We've got sport-specific factors. We've also got the your body size and composition. So smaller individuals, and this is why it relates to sex, tend to lose fluid much more so than larger individuals. So that's something we have to consider. I've mentioned exercise structure, and then we've got to consider your availability of fluids. Doing an event like this, where you've got to think about fueling stops and fueling stations, you don't always have access to water compared to something like this, whereby you can have a bottle of water, you can carry it around with you frequently. So just different things to consider, and as I say, pause the video and have a look at some of the other factors that you have to consider in terms of hydration. Okay, so what goes on with dehydration? Well, there's a lot of evidence on this that sort of shows that dehydration affects performance. Some nice studies where they use things like isokinetic machines to compare dehydrated individuals versus non-dehydrated individuals. This is a nice summary, and we can see that in terms of maximum force production or a percentage of endurance, what you see is where you do knee extension exercises, elbow flexions, so bicep curls for example, or total body isometric holds and dynamic movements, that force production and your ability to perform consistent sets is reduced across the board, and that's a consistent finding that you see when you look at the literature. So again, this is where that 10 to 15% performance drop comes from. And if you can maintain high performance all the way through your exercise sessions, then you can get better training sessions, and in that respect, you can actually you can potentially have more muscle growth and the ability to get better results if you can maintain performance at a higher level from there. So definitely affects your ability to lift, to do resistance training. If you go on to any of the position stances, you can find charts like this, which give you a larger breakdown of the various different things which go on when you're dehydrated. But in terms of cardiovascular exercise, if you lose blood volume, e.g. through fluid loss, you get an increase in stroke volume, that increases heart rate, core temperature gets elevated, and the body's got to work a lot harder to reduce that core temperature. That produces extra cardiovascular strain on the body, and it just makes things harder. One of the big things is that people talk about when they're dehydrated is they find exercise much tougher. So if you're doing that last set of squats and you're dehydrated and you're trying to go for 20 reps or whatever it is you're trying to go for, if the couple of weeks before you manage to get 15 or you manage to get 25 or whatever, then you only manage to get the 15, for example, this time. It might just be because you're dehydrated and you're finding things just that much tougher to push through. Effects on psychological effects of dehydration. These things are well noted. I think we can all sort of appreciate situations whereby people get kind of like heat stroke, for example. You get a bit confused, and that's what happens. If you lose a significant amount of your body weight in terms of water loss, then you see effects on mood, vigilance, reaction times, attention, working memory, reasoning. All these things are affected, and you can imagine how these things are going to affect sports like American football. You make mistakes. A high consequence sport like UFC or boxing, again, you end up making mistakes. So the guys are regularly trying to get hydrated throughout this. And again, when it comes to a sport like strength athletics or even CrossFit, you're going to potentially make mistakes, and these things cost you points. They lose you a match. They end up getting hurt. So hydration important from these reasons as well. Okay, so how do you avoid it? Well, you drink water, very very basically, and in terms of how much water, you're looking at 1 ml per 4 calories, something like that. That's a sort of basic estimate of water intake. But you just need to plan your sessions. So have a strategy in place. Take a water bottle with you to the gym at the very least. And then if you want to get sophisticated with it, then you can work out an actual plan for this. So very often a pre-session hydration strategy is something like 500 mils of water or sports drink the night before a competition, 500 mils upon waking up, and then 400 to 600 mils 20 to 30 minutes before you do exercise. So that will ensure, or at least help you make sure that you're sufficiently hydrated. During the exercise, you're looking at around about 0.5 to 2 litres per hour to prevent the weight loss. Now, again, it depends on the individual. Some people need more, and I've certainly seen situations where guys have lost 4 litres odd of water within an hour. It's just a really hot day doing very strenuous exercise, and they lost a lot of body weight, so the requirements were much, much higher. In terms of, you want to break that down, that's 125 to 500 mils per 15 minutes. Again, it should be individualised to yourself. So again, if you weigh yourself before you do a session, you weigh yourself after a session, and then you subtract the amount of water that you consume, you can get a pretty good idea of what your hydration requirements are for an actual exercise session. Okay, moving on from here. There are different sports drinks that you can take, as I mentioned before. We've got electrolytes, we've got sugar. If you add these to water, that changes the osmotic concentration, and then from there, that increases the ability of your body to absorb fluids. So you can actually absorb fluid better than water. So there's different types of sports drinks you can get. You can get hypotonic, isotonic, and hypertonic. So we're talking about 4 grams of carbohydrate or less per 100 ml. That gives you the best hydration. It gives you the least amount of energy supply during exercise. But this strategy here, if you're wanting to make a sports drink up or have one, is probably the best solution for any weightlifter, resistance trainer out there. You don't really need as much as this 4 to 8 grams or even this 8 grams, which is likely to actually dehydrate you. This is like a post-exercise solution and a good way to restore carbohydrates lost after exercise. But I certainly recommend something like this hypotonic solution. There are different types of drinks, so there's nothing stopping you getting fortified drinks, herbal drinks, or oxygenated or deionized drinks. If you're deionized, you're taking out a lot of the ions, so you're taking out electrolytes in a situation like that, so that will not hydrate you as much as just standard mineral water. Things that are fortified, just be conscious that certain, particularly B vitamins and vitamin C, can potentially dehydrate you. So if you're exercising, that's maybe not the best solution. And then like a herbal drink, certain polyphenolic compounds which are in these things, they might dehydrate you a little bit as well, because they tend to get passed through the body quite quickly. But also they might just taste nice, and just be conscious that there might be a little bit of carbohydrate in these types of solutions as well. Things you want to probably avoid prior to exercise are things which are carbonated and have excess sugar. That might bloat you a little bit, so you want to avoid feeling sick while you exercise. And if you need a little bit of caffeine, then flat Coke is popular amongst runners, but also just get yourself something like caffeine gum. That can be a very useful solution if you're looking for that energy hit, and you can control it very well prior to exercise. In terms of sports drinks, just be conscious, depending on your goal, that these things have got calories in them, and if you're trying to lose weight, that you need to account for these calories as well. So you can see here we've got Lucozade Sport, we've got Standard Powerade, you've got Lucozade Low Cal, so that's Lucozade Sport as well, and then you've got like a branched chain amino acid mix as well. Now again, I mentioned on the other page, you're probably looking at a hypotonic drink is going to be best for getting ready for exercise like this, rather than something which has got a much higher carbohydrate content, like these two. Really, you're not going to need these for the type of exercise that you're really doing in the gym. These are really the reserve of endurance type activity, like your Tour de France. And it's so the recommendations and the guidelines are 90 minutes of exercise. If you're doing less than that, then you don't need additional carbohydrates. So simple water will serve you best, or just add some electrolytes to a solution. If you're doing more than 90 minutes of exercise, then you're looking at 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. And if you're doing very long exercise, then say 240 minutes or more, then you're looking at say 120 grams per hour as well. And you can get specialist carbohydrate solutions for that, but you're also looking at other strategies to help refuel, like gels or taking little rice cakes and things like that as well. An important consideration is that protein synthesis is switched off during exercise. So taking something like this isn't necessarily going to be beneficial. And again, it's a calorie load. So if you make a change to a diet which is worth 150 calories, it's not uncommon for people to take things like this throughout the day, first thing in the morning, during exercise, and to double scoop and so on. And it's quite easy if you're taking that, say, 5 times a day to end up with 150 extra calories in your diet that you've maybe not accounted for. So just be conscious of that thing and think, do you actually need the calories for the additional exercise that you're doing, and do you need the carbohydrates for the session? In most cases, you probably don't, and something like this is going to be more than enough for you. So how do you make your own sports drinks? Well, you can go to places like Holland & Barrett, go on Amazon. There's tons and tons of companies which will sell you carbohydrate solutions like this. Super cheap. You can get these things from as little as £5. They contain electrolytes, they contain carbohydrates, you can get fructose, glucose mixes. They're not expensive. Don't spend a lot of money on these things, guys, because they just aren't. And then just follow the guidelines on the packaging and add it to water. Otherwise, what you can do is you can just make your own hypotonic drinks or even isotonic drinks. If you get something like squash, Ribena is a favourite, go 1 part along with 9 parts water, then add half a gram of salt, and that will give you a good hydration solution as well. And you can adjust that to meet your own needs depending on what your situation is. So it's about tweaking things and making things personalised to yourself. But again, very simple, very easy to make yourself some hydration solutions to help your performance improve during exercise and not see it diminish. Okay, so summary now for you guys. Dehydration can have significant effects on exercise performance. If you lose more than 2% of your body weight, then it is considered dehydration. You should consider your hydration needs based on individual factors, but also based on the environment and what the session requires. You can personalise a plan. If you're a sweaty individual, really think about this and think about how much water you lose during a session by weighing yourself. Aerobic exercise is really where we're talking about refueling ourselves prior to exercise and during exercise. For stop-start exercise like bodybuilding, you're not using the same huge amounts of carbohydrates during these sessions that you are compared to the endurance stuff. So the requirements are not that high. Largely, in most cases, water is going to be more than enough for you guys, along with some electrolytes. And then the final thing to say is that you can make your own sports drinks very, very easily. They're very, very cheap. There's a trend for guys using things like branched chain amino acids when they work out, cluster dextrins and so on. And these things can be expensive and they can add up, but you can make sports drinks very, very simply, very easy, and you can still maintain your performance by doing this stuff. Okay, guys. So thank you very much for your attention. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the rest of my stuff. Check out the Instagram proprepcoaching.com. You've obviously checked out my own page, which is Fueled by Scott Soates. Also check out the WMBF UK. I am the president of this natural bodybuilding organisation. If you're looking to do a show, then be sure to check us out. I'm Dr. Andrew Chappell. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully you found this useful, and I look forward to hearing from you guys again in the future. All right, cheers. Peace out.